the academic community is a market, and ideas are the product. And the quality of the product is the execution, the rigor, and the scholarly nature of how you execute your work. And so to do high quality work, you have to really understand what the bar is for rigor in its execution. And so I systematically studied that. And the work is out there.
It's all execution of it.
Yeah, like how you execute it. And then I also systematically studied how the market works. I actually would look at proceedings, like I would look at journals, and I would study what fractions of papers cover what topics over time to understand this market, almost as an economist, a macroeconomics kind of view of academic research, right? Looking at the swath of ideas that pass through this market. So I actually studied that. And all of the information's out there because the papers are out there. You can read and analyze the papers. And it's almost kind of disappointing when you look at some of the idea classes that just aren't being as successful, but are quite interesting. For instance, let me just, as an example, I would use approximate computing. There's this idea that we can allow our computers to get things wrong some of the time for efficiency. And if you develop the right kinds of mechanisms, that can be an adequate and even preferable way a more efficient way to do your computation. This approximation kind of domain, it was harder to get papers published if you're working on that for quite some time. But then there's other areas for which the market was ready and apt. So in cloud computing, deep learning, there was a time when all of the deep learning papers were accepted. And so when you observe those two factors, you start to realize that when your papers get rejected, it doesn't only correspond to the quality of the ideas and the effectiveness of the work itself. It also has to do with the market temperature and the level of rigor at which you executed your work. So I focused on making sure that I could relate every idea to the market. And I always try to encourage all my students to do what I call PLP at 3. They should have 3 distinct stories, research stories that they're working on at the same time, because I've seen many students get discouraged by working on one idea and getting rejected and thinking they're a bad researcher. That's the number one kind of problem, I think, in the way we do things is people will think that they suck when their papers get rejected, when they may be working on a hard problem, something that's not as sexy. Maybe they're working on memoization, which is an old topic that nobody cares about anymore, right? So
yeah.
Anyway, so I developed a number of these things, and that accelerated my productivity in academic research.